But like, I'm not used to that. In Florida, we have this like year round. Like, what is this? I'm like, where are your crickets? The frogs did start croaking when it started getting dark. That was about the only animal thing we had.
And could you see like flares coming from them?
Yeah. See, that one, the 2017 one, didn't have the solar flares going on either. So this one was cool because you could see like little like, yeah, and it had like rainbow colors. It was really cool. Like, I have not seen a picture that does it justice.
No.
Not one picture I've seen does anywhere near justice. A black circle, and then there's like almost a rainbow, and then you can kind of see flares going out, and the colors were. I have not seen a single picture that gave you the colors.
Wow. And the pictures.
The cameras can't pick up the colors.
The picture that my nephew got, you can see the sun, you can see the black dot in the Precept.
Well, that's what. So, I mean, with the phones, you can't really get great pictures. My dad had his good camera, but even his is just like white around it. Like, it didn't pick up the colors just because it's so bright. Let's see, I have the. Where's the picture my dad got?
Was this trip planned especially for this?
Yes, my parents had the camp. My parents had gotten the campground, and we were going to fly to meet them. And I was trying to find cheapest flights because there's nowhere near Southern Illinois, so you're having to drive anyway. So I'm trying to find cheapest flights, and cheapest were Cincinnati. And we had told the kids that when Abigail was 7, we'd go to the Art and Creation Museum because we went when Joshua was 7. So we told them we'd go back when Abigail was 7.
That's a good 7 year. That's a good thing.
Well, since they're in public school, I want them to hear early that there's two sides instead of only hearing one side. Even if she's not fully old enough to understand it, she has that initial, before she starts hearing it in school, she has that initial, like, you know.
It has a foundation.
So she was 7, and we told them we'd go when she was 7, and we're flying to Cincinnati anyway, so we're like, well, let's do, so we kind of made a trip out of it.
Wow.
And we had to, like,
good use of your time.
That's
Great use of your time.
Okay.
So this is
I know Sherry's coming,
but like I said, you can't see any of the colors. There was a huge solar flare down there, but like there's none of the colors.
That's cool.
That was a picture he got on his good camera. I mean, my phone didn't get anywhere near.
I'm about to pray, so we need to start.
That might be the best one I got.
Lord, thank you. Number one, just for the privilege of being able to open up your word and without fear. Thank you for what you've taught us through the week. I pray that we would glean from one another, from the study that we've put in. But most of all, help us to apply the book of Esther to our life. In your precious name we pray. Amen. Okay, David's going to open up and ask you why Vashti didn't come. So I'm not going to ask you that. Why Vashti didn't come. So I was like, well, and one guy goes, because she's a woman. I'm like, I'm like,
having fun here with all the girls.
Right? It's like this is my banquet. This is not in my timeline. But anyway, why? I would ask you, why do you think Esther is included in Scripture? It's just a nice story. Submission, that's a good one. It's a good reason, right? The name of God is never in it. Also, the name of God is never in Song of Solomon. I don't think I ever knew that. It's not. So 2 books of the Bible, God is not mentioned by name. Let's just say by name.
Well, Esther's also fulfillment of the promise that there will always be a remnant.
Ooh, that's a good reason. That's a very good reason because we keep looking for, and David will keep saying the big story. What's the big story? Because this is history, so it's his story. So we got to look for God in it.
It points us to understanding and reminding us that God is in control of all the elements, even when we look at leaders, our own and around the world, and wonder why God are they in control. He's allowing them to be there.
He totally is.
And will use it for His glory ultimately.
Right. And we may never see that.
We may never see that. Yeah.
But it doesn't negate the fact that that's what He's doing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Good reasons. Remnant. There's always a remnant. He's always in control, even if it doesn't look like it. And you know we're going to have to learn from her. That's why it's there. Scripture tells us, that's why He includes things in there for us to learn. Okay, historical context. I hope this is going to answer all your date things, because I'm a big, sometimes I go, okay, I don't know how this fits into here, but is that before or after this? And, Google is my friend, so sometimes I go, well, when did and what did? So we're going to get into historical context. And we're going to try not to put anything in there that isn't really there. Okay? First of all, when do you think, what year? What year do you think this took place? According to your, the chart, what year did it start?
The story begins in 483, but the rule of the king began in 486.
Right. So we already have a date. This is 483 BC. That's helpful because then we can put it into timeline of the rest of the books of the Bible and history. Is this just a nice story, or is it fact? What is
fact.
How do we know that?
Well, we know that aside from it being in our Bible, and we know
Right.
it's fact, that we know the history lines of the Medes and the Persians.
Right. The Medes and the Persians.
Medes and Persians.
They found archaeological evidence.
Oh,
I was in the Creation Museum. There was actually a section on Esther and all the archaeological evidence they found.
There.
See, I did my study.
She was doing her study even though she was on vacation. Okay. Well, you always want to know who wrote the book. I don't know who wrote the book. It doesn't say. The one thing we do know, it had to be a Jew. How do we know that?
Nobody else cared about their history.
Nobody cares about it except the Jew, right? And he wouldn't know that Esther kept her Jewish heritage and who she was, except that he was a Jew.
Right.
Some people say it could be Mordecai. Josephus says it's probably Mordecai. Well, he's their historian. But do we know? No. So we can do, our little blank that we have to fill in, the author, question mark. Could be Mordecai, could be Ezra, could be Nehemiah. Why could it be Ezra and Nehemiah?
So they were prophets.
They were prophets at the time.
Right. Same timeline. Okay. Ahasuerus or Xerxes, same guy, right? He's ruling the Persian kingdom from his throne in Susa. Being an inductive student, you go, where is that?
Thank you for the map.
Right? Thank you for the map.
Yeah.
And why is he ruling there? Right in the middle, from India to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia was here, not here in Africa at that time.
Right.
So that's interesting. How could he possibly rule that big of a kingdom? How's that possible?
And lots of kings underneath him.
Or princes.
Princes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean he fathered them.
No.
Does mean they rule. Because there's no way he could know what's happening in all of that unless he has people reporting to him.
So Susa is part of Iran.
A part of Iran, yes, today. Which that's interesting too, because I want to know if Esther is dressing like that and they've gathered them all, what does their dress look like? Well, you can look traditional Iranian dress and you can see what that looks like. Hasn't really much changed.
Right.
Truthfully, if they dress in traditional dress, it just hasn't much changed. Okay, the second part of the statue, I can't help but go when they go Medes and Persians, right?
Uh-huh.
Was it Daniel? Was that a kid's thing that we did here? Because the laws of the Medes cannot be changed. I just hear this kid saying it cannot be changed. I'm like, that's a play, that's something that the kids did here, because it just keeps rolling in my head, because that's how I know the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be changed. Once it's there, it's it.
Yeah.
It was either a kid's musical or VeggieTales.
Because that's where I got all my history.
All my Old Testament stories.
See, you're going, is it part of It's Cool in the Furnace, but
It's not.
it was included in the newest musical about that era, which is Danny and the Shacks.
That could be it. That could be it.
It wasn't
Because
Danny and the
he's
Shacks.
okay. So what do we know then? Who else was in captivity during the Babylonian time?
What person?
Daniel.
Daniel, yeah.
Right?
Daniel.
Okay. So he's been exiled as well. So can we put the book of Daniel in there with Esther and Ezra and Nehemiah? Okay, same time frame.
Yeah.
Okay. Why are the Jews in Babylon and Persia? I know they're in exile, but why are they in exile?
That was God's judgment on the land, actually. It was to get the 70 years of Sabbath in.
Right. What'd you say, Karen?
Something to do with the temple?
Okay. And
I couldn't quite get all that.
what have they not done? That's what they're supposed to do. They didn't do it. And
They've not let the land rest.
They've not given the Sabbath rest to the land.
The land.
For how long? I'm saying
Well, for 10 years.
for 10 years.
Or for 10 periods.
Maybe we should say that, 10 periods.
10 periods, because the Sabbath rest is
Every
7 years.
7th year.
Every 7th year.
And they're in captivity for how long?
70.
70 years
So it's been,
to
yeah.
let the land rest. You didn't let it rest. What do we, as farmers, tell us know that if you don't let the land rest, happens to the soil?
It goes bad. It loses all of its nutrients and it doesn't produce anymore.
Correct. So what could also maybe be happening during this time for their food famine? That could be happening. So exile is a judgment, right? For sin, judgment. But what is he also doing to his people?
Sustaining.
He's sustaining it. Yeah. He's taking them out. They're going into exile. It's not right. Babylonians, yeah. So
Yeah.
you sinned. That's
They
what I
have
told
the
you was
food
going to
to
happen.
feed you.
Right? Right? And Jeremiah told us that was going to happen. Okay? When we studied Kings and Prophets, which was fascinating to me, because like I say, I'm an Old Testament junkie. Jeconia, what do you, I'm going to ask what you remember that we studied from him. But if you don't know, don't worry, because if you didn't get Kings and Prophets, you wouldn't remember that. Because we had to go through and mark. I think you were the only one that was.
I might have been the only one. Well, he was the last
He was the
king
last
of
one.
Judah because he was taken
Going into
in,
captivity.
he was taken into captivity and a puppet king was set up.
Yeah, what was his name? Oh, I can't remember his name.
And he was in jail.
Because Nebuchadnezzar set him up.
set him up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As just to rule with the people that he left.
Right.
Okay, he's only 18 years old when he's taken into captivity. He's only been ruling for 3 months and 10 days. Okay,
But he was still considered a bad king.
but he was a bad king because he followed in the footsteps of the bad king before him.
Yep.
But he just kept on doing it, even though he knew it wasn't right. Let's also remember in history that Israel's captivity, exile, was done in 3 stages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Why Neb didn't take them all at the same time? I don't know. Let's never say why, but it was done in 3 stages.
It's a smart political strategy, though, because he was able to incorporate them
That's true.
into his own people as
Right.
opposed to
Right?
what we have going on now.
Right? Okay, and
Overwhelming
remember,
their systems.
right? Right? And it's true. It's just interesting. It seems like every book of the Bible we have, it's like, oh, that's like now. Oh, that's like now. Oh, how is that? Well, because Scripture is applicable to every single area of our life.
You'd think we'd learn.
We think we learn, yeah. Now, I was going to say I was going back to Daniel's statue. Have you ever studied Daniel? Who has the dream?
Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar. Who tells him what the dream was and what it meant?
Daniel.
Because none of his wise men could do it. Okay, I had a dream last night. What was it? Sometimes I don't know. Because God Most High gave him that. So the head was gold, right? This,
Silver.
which represented
Medes
Medes and the Persians. Babylon defeated.
Right.
We're in the Medes and the Persians. Who's going to defeat the Medes and the Persians? Alexander the Great, and then the Romans, and then the 10 toes. Well, we haven't gotten to that yet.
Right.
Okay, we're not there yet. But Babylon's happened, that's destroyed. Medes and the Persians, we're here, but we know, because we're this side of history, Alexander the Great is going to conquer this ginormous kingdom. And does anybody know how old Alexander the Great was when he died? He was really old, like 33 something. He was so young. He was really young when he died. So think about all the conquering he did. If he's going to conquer the Median Persian Empire, that's enormous. Well, Ahasuerus, I mean, he's something else. He is displaying his great splendor and glory, isn't he? Because he's a Median Persian. Now, this is who Neb takes into exile with him. Not just Coney. I thought that was funny. He's 18 and he has wives. I'm like, how old are you? And you have wives. Wow. His mama, okay, leading men, an entire force of 7,000 fighting strong men of war. Why wouldn't Neb want to kill them?
You can use them.
You can use them, right? Okay, maybe is it a mercenary when you hire it for? Okay, so maybe he's going to pay them to fight for him now instead of. All right, 1,000 craftsmen and artisans. Well, what does he need them for?
To build, create.
To make
What's
beautiful
Babylon known
things.
for, right?
All those beautiful things.
All those beautiful things and the hanging gardens, and then we get into Ahasuerus, right? And he's got all these beautiful.
Right.
Well, don't you think some Jews did some of that? If they're in captivity? Okay. Daniel 5, we know there's a mini tickle you farson, writing on the wall with Belshazzar. Okay? Who comes in to decipher that? Interpret that?
Daniel interprets that.
Daniel, right. Today, you've been found wanting and your kingdom is being taken from you.
Yes.
So who came in? Medes and the Persians. Okay, so we can put Daniel 5 into Esther because we know that happened because that's why Ahasuerus is in charge anyway. Okay? 2 Chronicles 36. At the end of the 70 years, now you look that up in your homework,
Right.
Cyrus decrees something. What does he decree?
That the Jews can go back and begin to rebuild the temple.
So what do we know has happened to the temple?
It's been destroyed.
It's been destroyed. Okay, so we could put a date into that too, because it's not only been burnt, it's gone.
And this is the last known time that the Ark of the Covenant was ever seen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't know the Ark of the Covenant was there during Jesus' time.
Right.
Because the last time it was seen was in Babylon, when
Right.
Babylon took it.
And the Wailing Wall, people think they're sitting there praying and crying. They're crying because the temple is nothing like Solomon's temple was. Absolutely nothing. It's good. It was pretty. But it was nothing like Solomon built. And when you read the description of Solomon's temple, you almost feel like you'd have to put sunglasses on to go in because of all the shine and the gold and everything wasn't just covered with gold. It was made of gold. It was I think it should have been one of the 7 wonders of the world, but we don't have it.
It's Solomon's temple.
Right.
That's replicated in heaven.
Yes.
Or
isn't
it
that
was the
cool?
replication of the
Yes.
temple in heaven.
So you also looked up in Isaiah 44 and 45, and who does he name that's going to do this? This is prophecy. This is Isaiah prophesying.
Oh, he named Cyrus.
He names
named
Cyrus
him
by...
by
Now be Isaiah going,
Yeah.
I wonder who that is. I don't think I know a Cyrus. I wonder if I'm going to meet a
Cyrus, that's
Cyrus.
not a very Jewish
right?
name.
No, right? That's a good point. He never meets Cyrus. It's 100 years before Cyrus ever happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so he does that decree. What do we know happens 516 BC? The temple building is completed. Okay, so when Esther's in captivity, the temple's built in Jerusalem. But who's still in Persia? Mordecai.
Yeah, they're still in Persia.
Okay. You can go, guilt, guilt, guilt. You should not be here. You should have never been here, Mordecai. You should have been in. We'll get to that. Because that's not true. Chapter 1. Now it took place in the days of Ahasuerus, right on the date 486 to 464. That was his reign, because that's what your chart said. So we know how long he reigned and when he reigned. The Ahasuerus, just in case you want to know which one, who reigned from India to Ethiopia over 127 provinces. In those days, as King Ahasuerus sat on his royal throne, which was at the citadel in Susa, and now we know that was the capital of the Persian Empire, and smack that in the middle of his empire. In the 3rd year of his reign, so when is that? He started in 86, it's now 483. He gave a banquet for all his princes and attendants, the army officers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of his provinces. I want you to make sure you're always marking being in his presence. Things happen in his presence that are going to be really important. And he displayed the riches of his glory and the splendor of his great majesty for many days. How long?
180.
Which in our timeline is, how rich do you have to be to feed, clothe, banquet, wine, drinking all these people for 6 months? That's a long time. But we think, I forget where it is that they have a 3-day celebration of weddings. 3 days. What do we have? Hours. That's
And we
enough.
barely lived through that.
That's enough, right? It's like, boy, that check's written,
I
right?
came home last night and Rachel had on Crazy Rich Asians. The elaborate over the top.
Over the top.
Over the top displays of their wealth and everything. And so that I was like, they did all that and he kept it going for 180 days.
6 months.
Yeah.
Again, that's something I don't get it. How would you do that? But this is wealth. His royal splendor, right? And his great majesty. Now, this is banquet number 1, right? So now we know who it's for. It lasts for 180 days, and then I want you just to note, he's married to royalty. That's what makes him royal. Because Ahasuerus was a soldier. He was a conqueror. That's what he did. But he married Vashti, who, I know I haven't noted, but she was Belteshazzar's daughter. That we saw in Daniel, did I say 2:7? The writing on the wall.
Yes.
She's his daughter. Spoils the
That's
war.
Daniel 5, I think.
Daniel 5.
Daniel 5.
Okay. 5 through 11. When these days were completed, okay, so 180 days are done, the king gave a banquet, number 2. This one lasts 7 days. Okay, what's the difference in this banquet and who is it for?
Everybody.
Everybody. Whether you're royal, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, all the people. Why is it only lasting 7 days?
That's more people to feed.
Oh, yeah, right? Way, way more people. Where is it?
It's in the courtyard.
Right.
It's not in the palace.
Right, it's in the garden of the palace. Okay, so they're not welcomed inside where all the other people are, so there's still a division of people, right? Then he says they were hanging of the fine white and violet linen held by cords of fine purple linen on silver rings and marble columns, couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of, I'm thinking this is porphyry. I don't know that I'm pronouncing it correctly. I had to look it up to see what it looked like, but it's like red.
That's
Like
how the
red
guy
speck.
pronounced it when I was listening to the NIV version on my phone.
Okay, that's how they did
Driving.
it. Porphyry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Marble, I know what mother of pearl looks like, and precious stones. Drinks were served in golden vessels of various kinds. Okay, I can't help but think the golden vessels were taken, right? And I don't know if these are the same ones. I don't know, because it spoils the war.
Well, they had a lot of gold to make stuff with too.
And that's true
Yes.
too. And the royal wine was plentiful according to the king's bounty. The drinking was done according to the law. There was no compulsion, so the king had given orders to each official of his household that he should do according to the desires of each person. And just as a side note, Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for the women in the palace, which belongs to King Ahasuerus. That's banquet number 3. So we've had one that lasts 180 days, the second one only 7, where the wine flowed freely. If you wanted to drink. Nobody said you had to drink, but it's there if you want it, and as much as you want. Okay? What do we know the king had a lot of?
Everything.
Right. What's his demeanor in verse 10?
He was drunk.
He's drunk.
She's married.
Right, right. So I love the line in Scrooge. It's like, I was making rather merry last night. I'm like, I think he was making rather merry for 7 days. Okay, that's a long time. And drinking, sleeping, probably vomiting, drinking, sleeping, probably vomiting, drinking. This is going on, going on, going on. And who is this for?
The common people.
Common
Common people.
common people. They get to drink as much as they want of the king's wine. Not watered down.
So they're probably all drinking.
They're probably all drunk.
Yes.
Yeah, it's free.
Trying to be nice.
Go get some, it's free, but I don't want it. But it's free.
And it's
Okay.
the kings. It's the
And it's
best.
the king's, and he invited us, so, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
when are we going to get to do this again?
Yeah, right, when we ever have that opportunity again. Karen?
Jenny, that's what I had read before of somewhere, that's why his wife didn't want to come in.
I've read that too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because
she
they're all
was
drunk.
Buried herself in front of a bunch of drunks.
Right, right.
A bunch of common drunks. It's not even the royal people. Gee whiz.
Right, that's a
What do you
good
think of
point.
me?
Yeah, right, right. And plus, she's hosting
Right.
her own banquet.
You kind of don't blame her.
I know, I don't blame anything that Queen Vashti did. I was like, you know, I would have done the same thing.
Strong woman.
Mm. You have to be married to him. You'd have, and if she's royalty,
Exactly.
she knows what she is supposed to do and what she's not supposed to do.
And you know what? In her heart, she knows who's royal.
He's
Who's
not.
really royal.
Right. Yeah. And that's true. Okay, let me go through. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Memhuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagatha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs who served where? In the presence, okay, of the king of Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti. Why does it take 7 eunuchs to bring her? I don't. Strong-willed woman, right? I don't know. Before the king with her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and princes, for she was beautiful. It wasn't, come join me and celebrate with me with my wine. I just want you as arm candy.
Yep.
No woman wants to be arm candy. That's just demeaning. Now, she's the spoils of war. Keep that in mind too. If she's brought as Belshazzar's daughter and he marries her, which makes him king, that's just not good. Okay? She's summoned by a drunken king on the last day of his second banquet, and she's to wear her crown, tradition says, and nothing else. That's tradition. Now, David goes, let's not go there because we don't know that. However, Jews are major at tradition. Maybe this was Persian tradition. It's another reason she wouldn't want to come. Okay? Because they're all drunk. Why? Okay. Moving on. Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, we know was delivered by 7 eunuchs, and the king became very angry and his wrath burned within him. I wouldn't want to be the 7 eunuchs to go back and say, they ain't coming. I don't want to be them. Okay? Because he's angry and he's going to rash out at whoever's just right next to him, I'm sure. Then the king said to the wise men who understood the times, make sure you mark that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that is so key. I didn't see anybody that camped on that, but I'm like, they understood the times, not only the times, but they knew law and justice. We need to understand the times because it was his custom to go for, hey, well, yeah, he needs to know because he's a army guy, not nobility ruling.
In his anger, his probably first thought was kill her.
Right. Off with her head. Right? Yeah, because he's drunk and he's mad.
But he's showing wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
He's actually
Still.
showing a lot of wisdom.
By asking these guys, well, what should we do?
Right.
Right? But I'm thinking maybe it's going to be even worse than what I want to do. But we still have to be according to the law. Okay? And they knew it. They knew what the law and justice was.
Also, there's so much out there. There's like so many different opinions on what.
Isn't that the truth?
Because another thing, one of the commentaries was saying that he was actually a very unwise king because he wanted to take action on his childish anger,
Right.
impulsive anger, and he decided that he had to take an action on that. So it was like, he took it, even asking his advisors was a sign of a weak king and a weak kingdom.
Because he should have just made a point on his own.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the fact that he did all this celebrating, also a sign of a weak king, because he was trying to impress of how
Right.
successful he was when a strong
And why
king would not
did you
have to
like
do
that commentary or not?
Well, it did seem like he is showing things along the way of being a weak person,
Right,
or morally weak.
right.
So I don't trust that he's like a wise king or strong.
But
Strong
you also
leader.
know in Song of Solomon, it always tells you to surround yourself with wise people.
Yes,
Right?
But are they?
But are they?
Because it's not.
But
that
it
they
says
said,
they understood the times.
Yeah.
And they knew law and justice, so I'm assuming they are.
But there's wise according to the world and wise according to God.
Yes.
And none of these people
none
have
of this
the
is
God
saying they're
morals.
understood
Yeah.
as far as God is concerned,
Yeah.
but the laws of the Medes and Persians, they knew.
Yes.
And they knew what they could do to her and what they couldn't do to her, because the Medes and Persian law cannot be repealed, changed, whatever.
Right.
It is what it is. If you make a law, it's never going to ever be changed. There's no appeal. That's it.
No.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. When you're
Yeah.
reading commentaries, go, yeah, but the word says to do
Especially
always
when they
pick that.
contradict themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
I did question like why they would not say maybe when you're less drunk.
Amen to that.
Justice.
Yeah, see?
Except for, as you go along, this wasn't happening immediately. This wasn't
No.
like, I'm drunk, she said, no, what are we gonna do to her? It didn't happen like
No.
that. This was over a period of time.
I think when we open up into chapter 2, I think we
You
can
start
see
to
that
see that.
there's time has elapsed before
His
something
wrath
happens to her.
burned within,
Within him.
excuse me, within him. So that, to me, that's like
That's a time.
it's simmering
It's
there.
simmering all along.
And he's like, got to do something. What am I
Right?
supposed to do?
And a wrong has been done to him. And it's going to take
Yeah.
him time to consult
Yeah.
with these wise men. So that's a good point,
I don't see
too.
him as a weak king, but I see him as a man, a human with, like, you have all that money and you're the conquering nation and you want to display what all you have. I mean, that's very humanly.
That's
and
kingly.
the queen is your possession
Yes,
from your
she is.
conquering. It's part of the same point of the entire party. So it's kind of, I see it just as any normal human would be like that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, he couldn't allow anybody to think that she ruled over him.
No, he
She
could
made a
not.
decision.
That could not
Yeah,
be.
that can't be.
No. Because then
So-
he would, I love the Oriental thing, that he would lose face.
Yes.
He's like, ooh, big time.
So you really see the military background
You do,
in here.
right?
Yes.
And with the size of the kingdom,
That's right.
that underlying thing of we have to keep everything under control. It's very difficult.
And she's
to
not
keep all
under
the
control.
pieces. But if we do something drastic, what is the ripple effect going to be?
Right.
And see, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. He did consult wise men, and they're going to have to consult among each other. I know this is what he wants to do, but is that law, and is it legal to do that? And then if we do that, then what are the repercussions to that? So that's going to take a while,
Yeah.
right? Just like our court system. The judge will go, recess, I need to think about it.
And that's
Yes.
what I mean by his wisdom,
Yeah.
Yes,
that he didn't strike out
Right.
immediately.
right. Okay, and then they named the wise men, Karshina, Shethar, I don't need to read much, except Memucan, right? Because he
Yes.
comes out. 7 princes of Persia and Media who access to what?
The king's
The
presence.
king's presence. So now you know who also is in the king's presence. Certain people have access to him and certain people don't. They sat in the first place in the kingdom. That's huge. You would think his queen would be right here next to him, right? But she's not there. According to law, he still wants to be legal. What is to be done with Queen Vashti because she did not obey the command of King Ahasuerus delivered by the eunuchs? Where is this? In the presence, here we go again, of the king and the princess. Memucan, I guess this is the spokesman for these 7 princes, said, Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king, but also all the princes and all the peoples who are in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, for the queen's conduct will become known to all The women, I want you to write females over that, okay? Causing them to look contempt with their husbands by saying, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought into his presence, but she did not come. This day, the ladies, those are the princesses, okay? So they're noble ladies of Persia and Media who have heard of the queen's conduct will speak in the same way to all the king's princes, and there will be plenty of contempt and anger. So, lots that's at stake, okay? That anger burning within him means he's consuming rage. Irrational, consuming rage, okay? That, like we said, taking time. He's got to cool down. The king consults wise men. Okay, I said next to it, the crime has to fit, the punishment has to fit the crime. Okay, crime, time, however you want to put that in there. They knew law and justice, punishment. We can't make it too bad, but we can't make it not bad enough either. So they're going to have to, like we said, talk. Okay? He points out what Vashti did to him and all the repercussions. So it's going to have repercussions not only from palace down to maids. How are they going to hear about what happened? They weren't there. How are they going to hear?
Rumor spread.
Right.
I mean, think how many of the common people were there.
Okay? And this happened after that 7 day,
Yeah.
that the common people are in there. Some commentators say only men were there. I don't know. But men wouldn't be telling their wives if Vashti didn't come. They don't want her. They don't want them to know that. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that one either.
Yeah.
But that's why God gave us all a brain. Okay, I can go. I don't think so, or that's possible. Probably not probable, but I don't know. Plenty of contempt and anger. Okay, this is not peace. No king wants to rule on that. Verse 19. If it pleases the king, that's a good way to start, right? Let a royal edict be issued by him, and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media so that it cannot be repealed. Right? Daniel 6:8 there. Because that's how you know Persian law cannot be changed. Do you remember what Persian law they wanted to write against Daniel that cannot be changed?
The lion's den.
Oh, that's how he got thrown into the lion's den. Right.
Prayers.
He was
Prayers.
praying. You're not supposed to pray. You
Yeah.
don't pray to anybody. And he didn't even go in privately to pray. He opened the window, as was his custom. It's like, my conduct is not changing. If I perish, I perish. That can be repealed, that Vashti may no longer come into the, here we go, presence of the king. So she previously,
She had the freedom to come
she
in.
had the freedom to come in because she's queen. And she's beautiful. And let the king give her royal position to another who's more worthy than she. When the king's edict, which he will make, is heard throughout all the kingdom, great as it is, the edict or the kingdom?
The kingdom.
The kingdom. Then all women will give honor to their husbands, great and small. This word pleased the king and the princes, and the king did as Memucan proposed. So he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province according to its script, to every people according to their language, that every man should be the master in his own house, and the one who speaks in the language of his own people. Okay, explain verse 22. Okay, you send in letters, but...
Well, the kingdom is so big, they're not all speaking the same language.
Right.
And the men can take wives in, like if they were soldiers and they went into a
Places.
kingdom, they could
Spoils
take
of war.
wives.
Right,
But-
spoils of war.
But whatever he speaks is the language of the house.
That's
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that girl that he took, whatever,
Has to learn his
got
language.
to learn his language. Okay? So that's why they're being so specific. Is there any chance that anybody won't know what they're supposed to do?
No.
No.
But the edict is solely, all women will give honor to their husbands.
Right.
That's the edict.
Right.
which in that day and even now in Iran is the law.
Isn't
So-
that is still the law?
So the
Ooh.
king is basically issuing an edict, restating a law that's already on the books.
But perhaps that law was not on the books. Think when
At
this
that
took
time.
place.
So in
that I don't know.
So in that time,
So
That
perhaps
was
he
not-
set a law that is still in place.
so, okay, yeah, it just seemed to me like he was restating an edict that was already.
Right, but think how far back this
Yeah.
goes.
Far back this goes.
Right?
Just because of the behavior that, like the.
Might be a
they talk about
custom,
the-
but might be a law.
Yeah, just like the way that they
Right.
set it up as the eunuchs going to demand
Right.
if you come before him, and the way
Right.
that his presence was protected and all
Right,
that.
right,
It just seemed
right.
like there was already this,
But it could have just
Established.
been tradition.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
There's something different between tradition and what this is what we do, and this is the law of the land.
Right.
You break it, this is what happens.
Laws enforcement.
And you have a lot of cultures that have merged together. So
Wow.
those traditions come from different
Yeah,
places.
think
Yes.
about that too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
From
so
all
that might make
that.
sense.
So to
India to
clarify,
Ethiopia.
yeah,
He
Yeah.
set it as law.
So one law may have been in existence, but now it's law through all 127
Yeah,
provinces.
that makes sense.
That would fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man is supposed to be master of his household. What does that mean?
Doesn't sound good.
It means the final decision comes down.
I need
to
some more drink. Is that what it means?
Well, it could to them, but
Could to
think
them.
about in God's economy.
There has to be level, right?
Yeah.
The buck has to stop someplace. Master of his household. Okay, what if he has a household that's just uproarious? What does that mean?
That means he's a rotten master.
He's a rotten master. He has no control. Something is not right. You are not doing whatever you're supposed to be doing because you have no control. And if you have no control there, you're not being put in control of anything here.
Right.
Or if you can't control that, you can't control this.
You certainly don't want to let, I guess I'm just, to me, it's Vashti and Esther that are the heroes of the story.
Yeah.
And the king that's just coming across as weak and
Mm-hmm.
kind of
And arrogant.
disgusting. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
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 I could, as a woman, I could totally go along with that. But is God using him?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. He absolutely is using him. It said, in recognition of the position of her husband, like Lynn said, a foreign-born wife was to speak his language. That is submission as well, isn't it?
It's
Now I
also
have to
control too,
speak.
though. If everybody in your household speaks your language, and is only allowed to, you know what's going on. When they can speak other languages that you can't speak, there could be plots behind your back and information and
That can lead to all kinds of bad things, doesn't it? Yeah, it's loyalty, right? Loyal. You could put a theme. You definitely need to put your theme 3 banquets. You want to know 3 banquets are there, right? You want to know if King Vashti refuses to go, and that there's a major edict that's issued that has major consequences. Okay?
Okay, I have one really stupid takeaway from this chapter though.
Please do.
Why do we need to know the 7 names of the eunuchs and the 7 names of the advisors when we have stories in the New Testament and we go, and a man with me? And you're like, why didn't we get those names, God?
Right.
I don't care
Right.
who these people were.
Right? Right?
I'll never remember anyway.
But
Why
you know
did
what?
you choose to put these names in here, right?
This is historical. Right?
I
This is
know.
a historical book.
It's because of history.
And it just gives credence, because I bet there's some artifact that has their name scrolled in there because they
Yep,
were
there
in
could
his
be.
presence, and it verifies scripture.
So it's like, it's just, all
Yeah.
this.
But I'm like, but all the names I want to know.
Okay, Paul's going here with 8 dudes. What are those 8
What-
dudes?
who are
You
they?
know? Why don't we know
Where
who
do
they
they
were?
Yeah.
It seems like we were.
I know.
I bet
Right.
you money if you could go back and look at the historical records.
And they'll be
Medo-Persian time, these
Yeah,
men are
that's the
listed.
time.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. There's the
well,
could
and
be
the same reason
verified,
he
yeah.
lists Mordecai's heritage,
Yes.
right? Because what are Jews really, really big about?
Oh, it's all the heritage.
Genealogy, right?
Yeah.
As we learned in Matthew, what's you start with? Genealogy.
Yeah.
It's very, very important. Okay? All right, after these things, verse 2 or chapter 2, how long do you think This might have taken,
All of us too.
just in chapter 2,
Well, it probably took some time because, again, communication. was not
127
instantaneous.
provinces.
Yeah.
You gotta get letters to all that. I'm guessing a
Well,
year. I'm guessing
At
a year, I don't know.
least, based on the fact that we know Esther was 7 years later.
Right.
When she came into him, it's a
Ends
year
up
or
being
two.
thrown. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then all that edict goes, right? And then they have to gather.
Gather them all.
And where do they all have to come back to?
Susa.
Susa. So we're sending people out, thousands, from Susa all the way to Ethiopia, all the way down to
Right.
India, and then somehow we got to get all
Bring them
these
back.
virgins back, and then we know they take a year to even prepare.
Mhm.
So I'm just guessing a year it took.
Yeah.
Okay. I have no proof that I'm just like I'd like to know how long is this taking because the Book of Esther is a 10-year span. That's it.
Mhm.
That's it. That's how long it takes.
Can I ask a really stupid
There's
question?
no stupid question.
This one is stupid.
No, there's no stupid question.
How do they know which ones were virgins? Any female could lie.
They could, but you lie and you go into the king and you're not a virgin, severe consequences. Plus,
So you're
that was a
probably
thing
dead.
of pride. That was a thing of pride in that era. Maybe I should say that they were a virgin.
And don't you think family members would have to,
Verify.
the repercussion wouldn't just be on the
Oh,
woman.
that's true.
It would
It
be on
would,
the
it
whole
would
family.
trickle down to
If-
the, you know, because I
if lied.
go back to Cinderella. I'm like, are all these women wanting to be into the royal palace?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
It's not like the Cinderella thing.
Yeah.
Because these are all ruled. They used to be ruled by someone else. Now they're ruled by the Medes and Persians. I guess they were ruled by Babylon. Now they're ruled by Medes and Persians. And now we have to, and what's going to be our job? Oh, this is what we get to be?
Sex trafficking, just like
Yes,
today.
it is.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
especially
That's all
when
I
you
could
read
see.
What happens to them when the king doesn't choose them?
Right,
Yeah.
They
right.
live the rest of their days in a second harem where they're basically forgotten.
Yeah.
Forgotten. I couldn't get over that. I was like, and if you're never called by the king ever again, what do you? You're just with all these women and you could never have a husband and a family and kids? No. No, you're in the concubine
Yeah.
at the king's wish. Should he ever think about you again? But he may never think of you again. But this is where you have to be the rest of your life.
On the other side, the grass is always greener. The kids, the ones that didn't get chosen are I'm too ugly. You know, I
Right.
could see there.
Thank
being,
you, Lord.
I could see some of the, you know, like some of the people not chosen and like,
Sure.
oh, they chose her and I, you know.
Right? And think about these guys that went out. They're the ones that are going to have to pick them because she can't be ugly. I mean, she's got to at least be in the running. So, yeah, you're a virgin, but I don't think so. That I'm sure that happened,
And Vashti was a pretty high standard.
right? For she was beautiful.
No, Jenny, the ones that went into the second harem,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean that he had his way with them and wasn't pleased and put them in the second harem? Okay, so
Yeah.
he basically broke them,
Right.
if you will, and then
Right.
they
Rape is a
lived the
good
rest
word.
of their life.
Rape
Yeah.
would be accurate.
Yeah,
Raped.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then they're done with.
they're done.
they're done.
Oh.
I mean, he can go in there and decide, I want this one and this one and this one, and you know, kings. There's no way they're just having one at night. It's just not going to happen. I mean, look at how awful it is now. This is a king, and it can legally do however many, whomever he wants. So, do they ever go back into the king? I don't know, but they have to be prepared at all times, at his beck and call, to go. You're chosen. You're chosen. You're chosen. That's their
Another
life.
stupid question.
No stupid question.
There it is. You start doing all this, and are you not promoting disease
Yes,
in all of them?
absolutely.
All of them, including Esther?
Including the king.
Yeah. But, and I know in other areas of history, you hear about kings and dying of syphilis or
Right.
gonorrhea or
Right,
whatever.
Yeah.
This isn't,
So did they.
these
This
things.
is why.
Of course they did.
Well, one of the reasons that they would want to have virgins come,
right, because they don't bring it out.
they wouldn't bring in disease.
And one of
So
the
then
reasons-
he wouldn't be exposed to any disease, so then he couldn't pass anything along.
And that's why he would
Yeah.
use the women who were held in the second harem, and they were never exposed to anyone else. There's
But-
no
Okay.
opportunity.
But and it's,
Yeah.
He couldn't
it's
just get the
also
local
another,
prostitute. He had to have the virgin.
Oh, yeah.
So there wouldn't
Okay,
be.
so there
Yeah.
wouldn't
and
be
it's
any
also
transfer
another
disease.
conquering.
Yes.
You got to think of
Yeah.
another conquering because now he's got this fresh babe that
Okay.
only he has had, and now
Okay.
only he
Yeah.
will ever have.
Okay,
So it's another
okay. That
dominant
makes sense.
thing.
Okay.
It's I'm just like, oh, we kind of glorify this story, and it's just not a glorification story. It's just not. If you were Esther, right, you know.
Sorry, didn't mean to derail you.
No,
but just kinda-
because those things go
Oh, I
through our
thought about
head,
those things.
you know.
Oh.
I was
Yeah.
just sometimes when you sit and you ponder, you're like, wow, Lord. Talk about being led where you don't want to go for the rest of your life.
And they didn't have a choice.
No,
Yeah.
no,
It doesn't
no.
surprise
He's
me
the
at all.
conqueror.
How many nations in our country and in the history have had this kind of stuff?
Right.
Like it's very common in
Yes, it
history
does.
and in the world.
Yes, it does.
That's what I mean. He's not a good king, but he's a normal secular king.
No,
Like,
he's no worse than anybody else.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, chapter 2. I just put maybe 1 year. I don't know. When the anger of King Ahasuerus had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. Okay, also some commentaries say he could have had her beheaded and her head brought to him on a platter. Some tradition says that could have happened. Maybe she doesn't even exist anymore. Maybe he's feeling, oh, maybe I should have been so. I don't know. Again, it doesn't say. We're just speculating. God didn't let us know, so we don't know. Vashti now drops off. We don't know. Then the king's attendants who served him, and where are they? Doesn't say it, but where are they? In his presence.
Yeah.
Let beautiful young virgins be sought for the king. Let the king appoint overseers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather every beautiful young virgin to the citadel of Susa, to the harem, into the custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and let their cosmetics be given them. Then let the young lady who pleases the king be queen in place of Vashti. And the matter pleased the king, and he did accordingly. So where is Haggai?
He serves
He
the
serves.
harem of the virgins.
Right.
The
Is
first
he in
harem.
the king's presence?
No.
No, it doesn't say that he is.
He's with them.
He's with the women. Right. And I'm sure he has his favorites. You got to know that this chapter covers a 4-year period. Okay? After Esther 1:3, now we're in 4 years later, when the king's anger had subsided, possibly a year. Okay? 2:12 tells us there was a 1-year beautification process. Okay? We know that part. Beautiful young virgins. Okay? Haggai's put in charge of them. And this is the one that pleased the king the most. Then she replaces Vashti. It doesn't say what happens to all the other ones. I don't know what happens to them. It doesn't say. Verse 5, there was at the citadel in Susa a Jew whose name was Mordecai. Now, this is a descendant of Jair. That doesn't mean that's his dad. That means it's a descendant. The son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Who do we know, or do you remember who Kish was? This is cool. It's King Saul's father. King Saul was of the tribe
The
of
tribe of Benjamin.
Benjamin. Well, David is of the tribe of who?
Judah.
Judah. All the kings come from Judah. Only one king came from the tribe of Benjamin. Mordecai traces his line back to Benjamin. Okay? That was important when we see why he may not want Esther to tell the king that she's a Jew. Okay? he had been, who had been taken, now not Mordecai maybe himself, but his descendants, into exile from Jerusalem, but with the captives who had been in exile with Jeconiah, king of Judah, which we said was the last king, okay, with whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had exiled. He was bringing up, we know that's 597 BC because that's when Jeconiah ruled. So we just know that's when that exile happened that they're mentioning here. He was bringing up Hadassah, which is her Hebrew name. Esther is her Persian name. His uncle's daughter, which makes Mordecai what? Her cousin. Yeah. For she had no father or mother. That means she's an orphan. Now the young lady was beautiful of form and face. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. Okay? You always want to get historical, where is this happening? Okay? Mordecai, we need to know he's a Jew in the tribe of Benjamin. Jerusalem this is the second exile because it was 3 exiles. This is the second one in 597 because, again, that's the study of the kings and the prophets, Jeconiah, okay? He descended of Kish, who's the father of Saul, so he traces himself right back to royalty, okay? He's brought up, or he brings up his uncle Abihail's daughter as his own. His family didn't return from Jerusalem, even though 516, Cyrus says you can. In fact, go back and build. He didn't go back. You had your homework, Ezra, right? Ezra is a contemporary. Nehemiah, Ezra, Esther, they're all together, okay? Ezra 1:5 says it was only those whose spirits God stirred to go back to Jerusalem to rebuild that went back. Well, that's why Mordecai's still there. There's no guilt there. God didn't stir their heart to go back to rebuild. This is not what I'm supposed to do. It's not my job. I don't have a good time, but God is not stirring my heart to go rebuild. Why not? I don't know. But I know I'm not supposed to go back. What if Mordecai had come back with Esther?
Then she would not have been in place.
Right?
Did she what?
She would not have been in place to do what God had her to do in history.
Right.
So for me,
Well,
I'm
but
like,
Mordecai wouldn't have
But
been
Mordecai
there
wouldn't have been there to make him mad too.
make Haman, yeah.
Yeah.
so-
And Haman first anything wouldn't have
right?
happened.
And remnant. Always look for this remnant, right? How God preserves his people no matter what. He has promised he will keep his covenant. This is this remnant going along, and we know, because we know Esther, but somebody's after the Jews. And who's in place? Esther. Just see God's sovereignty as you go through this, like, whoa. So it came about when the command and decree of the king were heard, and many young ladies were gathered to the citadel of Susa into the custody of Haggai. Esther was taken. Just keep marking those verbs of where she's taken. This is. Does Esther say, I would like to? Not yet. The king's palace into the custody of Haggai, who was in charge of the women, the harem, right? We all know how that happens. I'm telling you, right? Our husbands go, one woman's enough, thing, right? This is the harem. And now more women are being entered into women that are already in waiting for the king. And ain't nobody want them to come in. Now the young lady pleased him and found favor with him. Who's the him?
Haggai.
Right, Haggai. So he quickly provided her with her cosmetics and food, gave her 7 choice maids from the king's palace, and transferred her and her maids to the best place in the harem. Esther did not make known her people or her kindred, for Mordecai had instructed her that she should not make them known. Every day, Mordecai walked back and forth in front of the harem, of the court of the harem, to learn how Esther was and how she fared. So where's the court of the harem?
Maybe in the garden.
It would be in the garden or the palace, okay? So we know this is where he's walking back and forth, right? And I'm sure there's a guard, there's a gate, whatever, because you can't go in,
Right.
okay? So what's he still doing?
Checking on her.
Still checking on her. I know she's taken, I don't have any control over that, but still back here, be a dad, okay? They figure she's like 14 years old. But you know, how old was Mary? About that.
Yeah.
So this is just normal. Is Esther nobility?
Technically, yes.
Right.
They don't know that.
Jewish nobility, because she comes from Benjamin, which no more nobility comes out of, but Saul did.
That's all.
Okay? But she's not nobility in Persia. Okay? God doesn't tell us that, but you know that because of her heritage. She's taken, found favor, right? She's put in the best place, and she doesn't make known that she's a Jew because Mordecai told her to, but she's not under Mordecai anymore. So why does she still obey him?
Do you trust him?
She's
Would
actually
you not love a man that
Jewish
took you
girl.
when you were an orphan and raised you as your own? He didn't have to do that, but he did and loved her as his
Do
own.
we know how old he is?
I don't. I wish I did. Another fact, right?
Plus, it also does show her, her good nature, her loyalty.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and her wisdom.
This
to
is more
go on.
character that we're finding out about Esther. What is her character, right? Because
Right.
you had to make a difference between Vashti and Esther,
Yeah.
okay?
We'd have to think that she was very frightened also of everything that was coming. I mean, she was a
Right.
virgin, she's frightened, and Mordecai's a stability for her.
You know, I always tell this story when Catherine broke her arm. She's swinging, don't jump off the swing. What does she do? Well, that's my Catherine, Nobody was surprised that Catherine did that because you told her not to, so, So she jumps and she breaks her arm, and Mama is the one that gets her, puts the ice on it, wraps it up, elevates it, gets her to the hospital. Ron meets us at the hospital, and Ron walks through the door, who has done nothing. And her whole face. And they're going, that is not right. That is not fair. Even the doctor told me I did everything right, and all he does is walk in. I'm like, okay, I'm not jealous of that. I can't be that. You didn't call me to be that. Thank you that he is that to her. And it's still, it's daddies and daughters. It's just, I can't be that. I just can't. This is Mordecai to Esther. She sees him down there. It's like, she can look out and go, he's there. He hasn't left me. I can still see him. Okay. All these women are not going to like me. I already know they don't like me because all these other women came into the harem, and now that just makes more competition. Right. Well, they're even really not going to like her even more because she's going to get chosen. We women, we know what the attitude is going to be like.
But we see her character too in the fact that she found favor with Haggai.
Right.
It's just like
What did she do
Joseph
to do
when
that?
he got arrested and everything.
No.
If he had been pouting and mad, he never would have found the favor and
No.
Yeah.
by keeping the faith and still being a pleasant person and
Right.
not just
Right. Where she is, even though it's not a fun place, not a happy place, she's still obedient. Yeah.
And she's got faith.
Submissive.
Whether it's faith in God or faith in Mordecai, it doesn't say here.
Doesn't
but she
say.
has some kind of faith. That's the only way to have that kind of attitude
Right,
through it.
right,
She has
right.
hope. She has faith.
So who instilled that in her?
Mordecai.
How could it not really be a happy place if you were lavished on? It's like being at a spa,
Right.
24/7.
Right?
Yeah, but living with that many women.
But still, you're being doted over.
And you are being doted over and you're being
Your
provided
family.
your every
I
need,
bet
which
you
is
are.
awesome. I do, but there is always competition.
I do want to leave the spa and go back to my family eventually.
Right. I don't want to stay there.
I mean, there's probably some women that loved it, but then there's probably some that absolutely hated it too. I mean,
That's
it's one thing,
possible.
it's great being doted on, but then you're living with all the women and the competition and the fact that
And the
you're pretty
other-
much, yeah.
And I wonder too also if her Haggai pulling her out, giving her a place of favor, put her in a place
They don't
where
like her.
she could communicate with Mordecai.
Right? That's
Whereas,
a good point too.
you know, that
'Cause it
that
doesn't
God
say where
put
that
something
best
in her
place.
and in Haggai that he became her protector in
Right.
that way, which
Somehow she still sees
he's
him.
manipulating all of all
Yeah.
He
the
is.
elements
He is.
around.
Yeah.
He's using
Yes.
Haggai to put Esther where he needs Esther to be, in the best place in the harem. I don't know how harems work. Like, it's not my culture, but she's separated from others in the harem.
Right.
Protects her from any of the vicious women, that, especially
I
when
just you just kind of go, okay, that's I don't know where that is, but that sounds like a place. It's a good place.
World's worst beauty pageant.
We should write that down. World's worst beauty pageant right here.
I believe for that guy, the worst. Can you imagine all those teenagers? Oh my God, his life was not
Right?
good.
No. Okay, so when the turn of each young lady came to go into King Ahasuerus, after the end of her 12 months, so here you got another year, okay? Under the regulations for the women, for the days of their beautification were completed as follows. 6 months with oil and myrrh, 6 months with spices and the cosmetics. The young lady would go into the king in this way. Anything that she desired was given her to take with her from the harem, I don't know what that would be, to the king's palace. In the evening, she would go in. And so how long did she stay?
Overnight.
All night long, all right? She would go in the morning, and she would return to the second harem, to the custody of Shazgaz, the king's eunuch who was in charge of the concubines.
No longer
Now
virgins.
she's a concubine. She's become a concubine. She's not a virgin anymore because she's gone into the king and she's been there all night long. She would not again go into the king unless the king delighted in her and she was summoned by name. By name. Okay, there's got to be a record because there is no way that king is going to remember everybody's name. There's no way. Right? It's like, oh, I kind of liked her.
They got an artist
Imagine
like drawing
by the
pictures
time
and put the
he
names
knew
below.
the
So I can flip through his book.
And I don't think he wrote her name down
No.
until after the night.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I want to know that girl.
It can't just be a name. It's got to be a picture. You can't keep all those names straight. I mean, so there's like this book of like this artist drawing pictures of all the women, so you can flip through it. Like, I'll get that one today.
Or very few names were
We're recorded. That's a good point too.
True.
Okay, why do we know she didn't disclose her heritage when you were in Ezra 4? What did that tell you? Why wouldn't she disclose, besides Mordecai telling her?
Because there were people that were going to the king and lying about the Jews because they were trying to stop them from rebuilding.
Right. Specifically the tribe, against the tribe of who?
Benjamin was.
Judah, yes, specifically against
Judah.
that tribe, okay? They had enemies who discouraged the people of Judah and frightened them from building the temple. It's specifically sent to King Ahasuerus in the beginning of his reign. We know that from Ezra 4:6. So that's shortly before the events of Esther 2.
Right.
That's interesting. Why did God let that happen before Esther even gets it? I don't know. But again, this is that thread we want to keep watching God's sovereignty and how he puts things into the history. Okay? I don't know where a second harem is either, except that you have a harem with virgins, right, that they brought in, and now you have a second harem as concubines. So they are no longer virgins. So they're separated. Now that's her life in waiting. She's a lady in waiting, right? Forever and always. This is it. Now, when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his daughter, came to go into the king, she did not request anything except what Haggai, the king's eunuch who was in charge of the women, advised. How would he know what to advise?
He knew the king very well.
He knew the king very well. He knew when he's in charge of the women, right? He knows when the door is opened and she comes out, everybody's happy, and when the door's open and he's not happy. So what did she do that this one didn't? Okay? He's got intricate workings all in there, so he knows what to advise her to do.
Do you mean by sexually?
Yes, I think that and what to wear,
What to wear.
what to smell like, okay? What to say, what not to say. To to a 14-year-old.
Huh,
Okay? Esther found favor in the eyes of who? Not just Haggai, not just the king. All who saw her. So Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus to his royal palace in the 10th month, which is in the month of Tebeth in the 7th year of his reign. Why do I want to know that? What month? I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I haven't read the end of the book. But God wants us to know when she was in there. I know that's December, January as far as the Jewish calendar is concerned. That's all I know.
Well, so the 7th year, that means that these women were captured and brought to the palace in the 3rd year, is that right?
Probably the 4th and
Second.
5th year.
Second, third, because then you have 4 years. Because Esther 1 starts in the 3rd year of his reign,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so there's a 4-year period that's happened before Esther actually even goes in.
Yes.
But all of the banquets and stuff take at
Before.
least 7 or 8 months of that 3rd year, because the first banquet is 6 months long, and that's not
Of the
where anything
3rd
happened.
year. Yes, right.
So you're close to the 4th year,
Mm-hmm.
or
And
into
you
the
might have
4th
had a
year.
year when he finally made the decree. Then they have also a year of preparation,
Yeah.
okay? And then we know it's the 7th year. Well, you got to keep in mind too, that's a lot of women to go through.
Yes.
Yeah, that was.
That's just a lot of women in 127 provinces
Yes.
to
Well, and there
figure
were,
out.
obviously there were already women there
Right,
Right.
right.
that were in the process and
In the era.
through the
Yeah.
year.
Haggai had to have
process
somebody be in
already.
charge over.
They were constantly refilling.
Correct.
Right.
Right. So that does take time. But you want to also just anytime there's a time phrase. Okay, so if he started in what time? What did we say he reigned in 486? So minus 7 years is 479. Is that right?
My Bible,
479, 478.
Katie's Bible,
Right.
she actually has this dated at 478.
Okay, so F78. So it was 78 or 79. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we know, and he only reigns till when? 464.
Yeah.
He only reigns till 464. So now we know how long Esther's queen.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to her? I don't know, but we do know Alexander the Great comes in and wipes out the Medes and Persians. But Alexander the Great was also not known for killing. He converted everybody to Greek.
Right.
He wanted everybody to speak Greek. He wasn't all about, slaughtering everybody. Medes and Persians were known about that. But he wasn't. He was knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So did she die? Well, I don't know. I don't know when she died. God doesn't let us know that. I have no idea. So she's taken. Okay. 17. The king loved Esther more than all the women, and she found favor and kindness with him more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So the decree is fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
They found someone more worthy than Vashti.
Did they let the rest of the virgins go?
Doesn't say that. They didn't let the rest of the virgins go, right? I was like,
I mean, he found this new queen. They're not needed anymore, right?
Seems like the
Wouldn't
system
one
was
hope
in place,
that-
right? The system was already there.
In place,
Always
yeah.
there. Just some of the other
Yeah.
things that they had set up, like the eunuchs and the.
I don't know, think about if you were let go.
Um,
Think about the reception you'd get.
Well, if you got let go before you actually saw
know,
the
but
king,
still.
so then you.
but you have to continue to remember this is a conquering.
Yeah.
So what? He's
I would,
crowned her queen. That doesn't mean celibacy.
Well,
This is
it
the
says
queen.
more than
He
all the other
doesn't do
women.
that.
He may have seen all the rest of the women after Esther and then got back and said she was my favorite.
That is quite
that's
possible.
true too.
It's
It
interesting
says,
that they
he says
use the
he
word
loved
love
Esther,
to that.
Esther more than all the
I
other
know,
women.
Right? More
And-
than all
and-
the other women, so he had to have gone through maybe
Kindness.
all the other women.
That,
Kindness,
that he
yeah.
treated her with
Isn't that
kindness.
something?
Yeah.
that's true, yeah.
She's not only favored the king, but Haggai, but all who saw her. I just like, what did
Does
she
that include
do
the
to
women,
do
though?
that? It says all.
it says
That's
all.
really hard to please a lot of
I
women.
know, but I
To me,
can't.
it was-
I don't know what to tell you.
It was God's, that That presence,
Right?
person of God.
Covering over someone.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay, in the 7th year of his reign, so we put a date to that. Loved and favored by him more than all the virgins, but remember, there are still concubines in this marriage.
Right.
They're still there because this is culture. This is what happens. Great, Esther's queen, but she still has many, many people. And like Karen said, disease is going to happen because that's just the way it is. So now, it says that the king gave a great banquet, Esther's banquet. So which banquet? This is number
This is number 4.
4. For all his princes, his servants, he also made a holiday for the princes and gave gifts according to the king's bounty. What do we know about the king's bounty?
It's a lot.
It's endless. It's just huge. Okay? Tradition also said the holiday was permission for a remission of taxes for all his provinces. That's a pretty good holiday. This is not Purim, okay, that we learn about in the book of Esther. Not yet.
Not yet.
Purim's coming, but this isn't it. All right? Verse 19, when the virgins were gathered together the second time, I have no idea what that means. I did not get clarification. When would they have done that? I don't know. And again, Esther's not a virgin anymore.
Mhm.
So where is she? She's queen. Well, queen has everything Vashti had,
She's in
right?
her own
So
place.
she's by herself. Yeah. Then Mordecai was sitting where?
At the king's gate.
He's not walking back and forth anymore, is he? He knows where Esther is. Esther's queen. She's good. I'm not walking back and forth. So he's sitting. What do we know about people that sit at the gate of the king's house?
It's where the gossip is, isn't it?
That's where the gossip is, but does
But they're also
everybody get to do
no,
that?
they're welcome there. They've been selected. They've been
Right.
chosen.
Well, he's a Jew
No, but
in exile, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but do they know that? I don't think
exactly.
they know that.
No.
And he is not telling them.
Well, I'm sure there were a lot of people from a lot of different places in that area because it was the capital.
Center. You're right. You're right. And which is wise. You would have all these other people from different cultures that you're ruling over talking. Okay? Esther still hadn't yet made known her kindred or her people, even as Mordecai had commanded her. So we know he's still been able to talk to her. Okay? For Esther did what Mordecai told her as she had done under his care. There's the time thing. She's not under his care anymore, but she's still
Behaving.
behaving,
as if-
doing. She knows this is a wise man. This is Daddy.
Well, I'm sure
Still doing what Daddy tells me to do.
he's not walking because she's in the queen's palace now.
He's not worried about her.
But at the king's gate, that's where he can hear word of what's going on.
This
Yes.
is the place
This
of
is-
prominence.
he's still watching over her. He can't do the walking now. He's watching over
Right,
her at the king's
right.
gate.
I just love that he's sitting and he's not pacing. Okay, this is good. In those days, while Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's officials, oh my gosh, where would they have been?
In the palace.
And the palace.
In the palace, and they would have attended all the banquets.
Uh-huh.
They would have been at all the banquets. So there's a spy among us, right? Shall we say that? For those from those who guarded the door became angry and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. But the plot became known to Mordecai, and he told Queen Esther, and Esther informed the king in what?
What's his name?
In Mordecai's name. She doesn't take credit for it, right? She didn't overhear it. What does that tell you about her character? She's not asking for credit. She just wants to protect the king. Wow, that's credit. Okay, she's queen. What's going to make me even better? Let me tell her about this plot. I know my dad told me, but oh no, Mordecai told me to tell you.
But if she had tried to claim credit, he would have wanted to know
How she knew.
where she was that she
Right.
overheard it.
Right?
Because she shouldn't have been
Smart
in their
woman.
presence.
Smart woman.
Yeah.
Let's not, the truth is either to keep track of than a
And,
lie.
and there's more credence coming from a man, even
Mhm.
if she's
Even if
queen.
she's queen. You're right about that. And when the plot was investigated and found to be so, they were both hanged on a gallows. Some people say they were impaled. And it was written in the book of Chronicles, where? in the king's presence. So he knows about it. He's heard Mordecai's name. So when we
And
read
he's
about
had it
him hearing it
recorded.
again, right? It's not a new name to him. He's heard it, and it's been written down in his presence. Okay? She's not seeking credit. The plotters were hanged. And so I just love that it was written in the book of the Chronicles. Things are written down. What's your theme? And again, remember, this is just for you. I got to go back. I got to see, what was in that chapter again? Where's that chapter? Where do I want to find this information? What information do you want to remember from here?
I just did Esther's chosen queen and
Good.
then the plot,
And the
murder
plot. And the plot, right?
because that involves Mordecai.
Yes, because that's going to be important as we go on.
Yeah.
So we want to know Mordecai saves the king. Plot thwarted, right? Okay. Application here. Esther seems to have no control. She has no say over her life. Do we? No.
Realistically,
Realistically, no. And
we like to think we do.
We like to think, I decide what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go. I'm going to, yeah, well, I kind of do. But God directs your ways.
Yeah.
And what you, I mean, how many times has what you thought you were going to do that day didn't happen? Didn't go there, didn't do that, didn't get, I thought this was, and this did not happen. Why? Oh, it's God's still in control. Okay? She's an orphan. I don't want us to ever forget that. There's no feeling like that when there is no mom, there is no dad. Your parents are still alive? One of them. No. So you're an orphan.
Right. And you actually do feel it.
Yeah.
And your parents recently died. It's no, oh, no, they're not there. Oh, they're not there. She has a wonderful dad. Mordecai's been wonderful, but he's not her dad. Did she know her mom and dad? I don't know. Probably. What we know, they died. She's witnessed that. She's an orphan, and now she's in the palace as queen. How bizarre is that? It's just bizarre that an orphan is a queen, and she's Jewish in a Persian empire. It's just crazy. And she doesn't, she's in a foreign land, and that she doesn't speak Persian. Well, she's going to. Right? Okay, so what can God do with that? We're going to see. Okay? We're going to see. What did she bring to the table?
She's pretty.
She's pretty. Of form and face. And she found favor with all. That's what she brings to the table. Except her character, pretty good. If she finds favor in everybody, she's bringing that to the table. Okay? Willing, humble, obedient spirit. Okay? So you gotta...
If they're remnant, then both Mordecai and Esther have studied the Jewish law.
Absolutely,
correct? And they
yes.
followed it to the letter. And
Yes.
Okay.
Because Mordecai taught Esther.
Yes.
Because she's a woman. She has no access to the Torah. She has
But-
no access to anything unless Mordecai tells her.
I wonder, I question that she didn't speak their language. I think
She would have grown
Mordecai
up with it.
probably trained her in their language too, because he was a master at working within their society.
Right.
If she only spoke Jewish, there's no way she could have hidden her heritage.
In the...
And she's grown up right there.
She's grown up there,
She's
and kids
grown
will
up
pick
there.
up
It
the
would be
languages
natural
around
just to
them.
pick up that
Kids will
language.
pick up the languages.
For me, you know, and I'm going to put the timeline in case anybody wants to write that down for that. For me, having one that was not born in America as part of my family, Villas's language, heart language, is not English.
Right.
It's Lithuanian. Because he doesn't have to think about that. Just talk. Not with us. With his mama on the phone, with his sister on the phone. But as far as I know, he doesn't know any other Lithuanian he can carry on a conversation with. Having returned from Norway, it was a relief to land in Detroit, and the first announcement you heard on the was in English. Oh, you don't realize you've been conditioned. First it's Norwegian, then it's German, then it's English. So you're waiting. Oh, that's the announcement, because you're third in line.
Don't fly through Miami. First language is Spanish.
Spanish.
We went to Spanish countries and would fly into Miami like, yes, English. You're like,
Right?
seriously? Where's English?
It's, there is a difference. I know Brian and Jeannie, friends that work in crew, they call it, because they work with the Jesus film, they call it the heart language.
Mhm.
Persian is not her heart language. Her heart language is what she talks back and forth with Mordecai. Yeah, she probably does know Persian and can able to do that. It's not her first language.
Right.
That's not her heart language. But she has to talk that now from now on.
Just
That's
a
where she
quick
is.
question, a little off center here, but would history repeat itself with the way the story started and Vashti lost her position because she would possibly come before the group naked?
Right.
Would this tradition be carried on that Esther would eventually be asked to do the same thing?
It could. It
But
could.
we don't know that.
But he was drunk when he asked her to do that.
Yeah, but typically, if that was the tradition to do those 7 days after the 180, typically this would be the routine for his
Right.
party, so he
Right.
would
He's going to
possibly-
get drunk again. You know he
Would be
is.
drunk
He's going to get drunk
Do
again because
something.
that's his habit, but is he
Does
going to
his
demand that
reign
of
was
Esther?
short?
Esther seems to be a totally different character than
Yeah.
Vashti.
might be a
Also,
different
his
relationship.
reign was short when you think about it.
So
And this
short.
covers a 10-year span, so there isn't a whole lot of time after the book ends
I think
that
it's 22
he's
years.
still in power. So she might have escaped that.
But it might have been just a really
Humiliation.
different
22
relationship. The
years.
other one,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
conquered the nation, took the nobility. There was definitely that like submissive, whatever, like where this one he chose her from all these people. And he
Right.
may have a
Right.
different relationship where it maybe,
And Vashti could
Well,
have
it says
been
he treated her with kindness.
yeah.
love.
And I would say
Yeah.
remember that.
And it
thought
never
and
says that with
question when we
Vashti.
get to
Yeah.
the end of the book, and
Okay.
you might answer it for
So
yourself.
I just, I think her demeanor towards him is just different.
Well,
It's
and you
just different.
treat people differently depending on how they act. If Queen Vashti was like more arrogant in
Right.
her fact she was nobility and all that,
Right.
where
she knew who she
Esther is
was.
more humble, he's more likely to treat her with more
Right.
force than he is with Esther.
Right.
Yeah.
I had thought about I was thinking about the men. Oh, what is I think all men are like that. What's the biggest thing you do not do to men?
Correct them in public.
Crush their egos.
Yeah.
Disrespect.
Disrespect. Right.
You do not do that. Now, you may do that at home, but you do not
Don't do.
do that in public. You do not disrespect. She did that.
Totally.
And not just in front of a few people.
That's his entire kingdom.
She majorly disrespected not just her husband, the king.
Right.
Okay. You just gotta remember that Vashti did that.
You know, had
so.
somebody other than the queen done that, it probably would have been immediate death.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Probably would have been. But because she was the queen, he had to go by law,
Right.
according to me, the Persians. What is my law? Yeah.
She did the right thing. It's like, who knows what that that's just one little look into that relationship.
Right.
It's hard to imagine that it was a really great relationship until that point.
Yeah, from the get-go. How good was it even to start with? Yeah.